Aloha aina, ano ai, velina kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau-Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumuhula, filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Ano ai me ke aloha ia kākoa pauloa e ko Hawaii nei pai aina puni. Mahalo anu ia o ko ke kipa ana mai, ka launa mai, ho'onenea mai, o wau no ke ia o kumuhina.
Aloha, I'm Leon Kaulahau-Siu, reporting from Nuku'alofa, Tonga. Welcome to Free Hawaii News. I'd like to share with you a breakthrough we've had recently in the Pacific, and that is the acceptance of Hawaii as an independent nation in the Polynesian Leaders Group. One of the worst outcomes of the 127-year-long illegal U.S. occupation of the Hawaiian Islands has been the separation of Hawaii from the rest of our Pacific Islands family. That separation has excluded Hawaii from representing our own interests in international matters. The interests of the Hawaiian people and Hawaii as a nation are displaced by the interests of the United States, from Washington, D.C., 5,000 miles away from our shores, and with a different worldview leading to very different set of priorities. The reason I have been attending these meetings since 2013 is to reconnect Hawaii as a Pacific nation to our Pacific family, to engage with these Pacific region intergovernmental organizations that are dealing with critical issues confronting all of Oceania. It is important to engage as Hawaii, the Pacific Island nation, rather than Hawaii, the state of the United States. The other objective is to garner Pacific Island nations' support for the reinstatement of Hawaii as a sovereign independent country, starting with a UN General Assembly review of UNGA Resolution 1469 of 1959 that erroneously consigned Hawaii to be a U.S. state. One of the principal speakers at the meeting was friend and advocate Reverend James Bhagwan, the Secretary General of the highly influential Pacific Conference of Churches, one of the primary drivers behind the decolonization of most of the Pacific Island nations. We discussed strategy for the Pacific Conference of Churches, advocacy for Hawaii's independence at the Pacific regional and global platforms. One of the highlights from that visit was the acknowledgement from the chair of the Polynesian Leaders Group to include the independent state of Hawaii, that's us, in future meetings of the Polynesian Leaders Group. I received a message inviting me to attend a Polynesian Leaders Group special meeting in Nuku'alofa, Tonga, here, which is why I am now in Nuku'alofa, Tonga, as an invited guest of the Prime Minister to attend a Polynesian Leaders Group senior officials meeting. Over the past 12 years, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Hawaiian Kingdom, I have attended meetings of the Pacific Islands Forum, the Pacific Islands Development Forum, the Melanesian Spearhead Group, and the Polynesian Leaders Group. This was the first time for Hawaii to be officially invited to a Pacific regional intergovernmental meeting. In attending several PLG meetings, I had the opportunity to speak out about Hawaii's situation on at least 3 occasions. We have spent many years meeting with diplomats from Pacific Island nations at the UN to apprise them of our situation and how their countries could help us. Their diplomats, by and large, are very sympathetic to our cause, and have been saying to me, "Go talk to my capital," which means go talk to my leaders at home, because they are the ones who can say what we can or cannot do at the UN. So thus, receiving an invitation from the Prime Minister of Tonga, the new chair of the Polynesian Leaders Group, is a significant breakthrough. It means having a seat at the table where we can interact in the spirit of mutual support for our concerns and challenges facing the people of Oceania. It also means we can engage directly with capitals, with the leaders of the different nations, not only to pursue formal participation as a Pacific nation in Pacific regional organizations, but to ask them to move forward with a UN General Assembly resolution calling for a review of its actions that it took that negatively impacted Hawaii. At the Polynesian Leaders Group meeting yesterday, I was formally introduced and welcomed as a representative for the independent state of Hawaii and given an opportunity to make a few remarks. I thank them for including us, basically confirming and sealing Hawaii's place in the group. I gave each member a packet describing our situation, our aspirations, and our request for their help. Then, at lunch and later in the day, several of the leaders expressed their welcome and saying, "It's about time." I had brief talks with several of the leaders. I also presented to Tonga and Samoa a copy of Dr. Lorenz Gonshore's book, A Power in the World, The Hawaiian Kingdom in Oceania, to inform and remind them that in 1872, King Kalakaua initiated a Polynesian confederation consisting of Hawaii, Tonga, and Samoa, and that it was the start for a larger plan for a unified Pan-Pacific Asia cooperation. That was the precursor to the Pacific Islands Forum and the Polynesian Leaders Group. The next meeting of the PLG will be in Suva, Fiji in December. I plan to attend and use the opportunity to advance our cause.
One of the top issues in Hawaii is the filing of a lawsuit last month seeking to overturn Kamehameha School's admissions policy giving preference to Native Hawaiians. The suit filed by Students for Fair Admissions, a leading opponent of affirmative action in the United States, is based out of Arlington, Virginia. These actions have caused confusion amongst some here in Hawaii and elsewhere as to how and why Kamehameha Schools has had such a policy since its founding in 1887 during the Hawaiian Kingdom by Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop, the great-granddaughter of King Kamehameha I. It is not clearly understood by many today of the significant difference of the legal and cultural status of Hawaiians during the Hawaiian Kingdom versus their current United States status today. To answer all of that, we go now to Adam Keawe Manalo Camp, who is a Hawaiian historian. Aloha mai ka Adam Keawe.
Aloha kumuhina. Mahalo again for having me on Free Hawaii News, and great to see you again.
What is the difference between how Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians, Kanaka, are recognized in the Kingdom of Hawaii, an independent country, versus how Hawaiians are recognized under the auspices of the United States?
So in the Hawaiian Kingdom, being Hawaiian was a political and national identity, not just a racial one. It meant belonging to a sovereign people, the Kanaka Maoli, also defined by the court system as the native and aboriginal people of Hawaii, who founded the governance and forged the destiny of our nation. By contrast, the United States redefined Hawaiians as a racial group, erasing our political identity, our political class within the Hawaiian nation. This system disempowered Hawaiians politically, turning us from a sovereign people into a racial category, into a blood quantum category, and into a dependent class.
Would you say the creation of Kamehameha Schools was an act to safeguard its own people?
Yes, definitely. Princess Bernice Pauahi Bishop's will was both a legal and moral safeguard for our people. It created a trust for the education of Hawaiian children, and it was a direct continuation of the kingdom's commitment to uplift the native population.
Why in the Hawaiian kingdom, the rights and welfare of Hawaiians were central to the moral function of the Hawaiian kingdom government?
The kingdom saw government as a living covenant with the people. The 1852 Constitution, for example, declared that the government is bound to protect the people, both in their persons and property. This duty went beyond rhetoric. It shaped laws that secured education, health care, and land rights for Hawaiian subjects of all ancestries. But the monarch and the legislature alike understood that a nation's moral legitimacy was measured by the welfare of its people, and that the Kanaka Maoli were and are foundational to the Hawaiian nation.
In the Hawaiian kingdom, the health of Hawaiians was synonymous with the stability of the nation itself, correct?
Yes, exactly. The kingdom recognized that the survival of the Hawaiian people was the survival of the nation itself. To harm the Hawaiian people was to weaken the kingdom. This is why the Hawaiian kingdom funded education, medicine, and land reform to sustain this moral center, this kuleana. The well-being of the Aboriginal or native subjects, us Kanaka Maoli, was inseparable from the stability of the Hawaiian nation state, both legally and spiritually.
So the Hawaiian kingdom placed Hawaiians at the moral and constitutional center of the kingdom as a protected political class rather than just another race among other citizens and settlers. Yes?
Correct. The Hawaiian kingdom placed Hawaiians at the center of its political identity. They were not one group among many. They were the foundational people whose welfare was the test of good governance. Their rights were protected as part of the kingdom's constitutional order, and that the government was seen as their servant, not just their ruler.
With the United States, the fundamental difference is that Native Hawaiians, ethnic Hawaiians, are simply seen as just another race, rather than how the Hawaiian kingdom saw ethnic Hawaiians, Kanaka, as people who were foundational to what makes Hawaii actually Hawaii. Correct?
Yes, definitely. So under US law, Hawaiians became more racialized, redefined as a demographic rather than a political class and a national people. This erasure of political status continues till today, where indigenous rights are treated as racial privileges instead of obligations rooted in history and law. The kingdom saw Hawaiians, Kanaka Maoli, as the heart of Hawaii, the source of legitimacy, language, and law. The United States sees us as a population to be managed.
Would it be correct to say that the new lawsuit against Kamehameha schools would erase the existing legal relationship between Hawaiians and the state of Hawaii, which would put many other things at risk that have been created for Hawaiians?
If ancestry-based preference is reinterpreted as racial discrimination, it could endanger Hawaiian homelands, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and Native Hawaiian health, scholarships, grants, and educational programs.
Adam Kiave, mahalo anui ya oi kao mauhana mai kai, mahalo anui ke ihui ana.
You're watching Free Hawaii News, giving you the Kanaka perspective on issues in Hawaii.
We welcome you all now to this portion of our show where we get to talk to you about the Pacific Way. And while I am here in Honolulu, my colleague is out there in the South Pacific, actually coming to us direct from the Kingdom of Tonga. Aloha mai, Leon.
Aloha. As you can see, behind me is the Royal Palace. The people here have been just wonderful and gracious, and so it's been a great experience.
We have just wrapped up from a wonderful time in Washington State, and we met with our fellow Kanaka there. We We saw some faces that we haven't seen in many years. And what were your thoughts about the convention that we attended?
Well, at first I thought, why are they having it in Washington State? And then, as they sent some more materials out, they said the largest diaspora in the United States of Hawaiians are located in Washington State. And I didn't realize that. I thought they were in Southern California or Nevada. But anyway, it was surprising. And I had a really good time there because it was good to be in a different place, and I was glad that the Hawaiian Convention decided to go there because it was more inclusive. It brought more people in, and it recognized the fact that Hawaii and Hawaiians are really broadly spread around not only the United States but really around the globe.
For those of you who may not know, I have the privilege and honor of serving in the capacity of my day job as the ambassador for what was formerly known as Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, now simply referred to as Hawaiian Council. And in this year, the annual Native Hawaiian Convention of 2025, under the direction and guidance of Hawaiian Council's CEO, Kuhio Lewis, decision was made to respond to the many comments and the feedback that comes from our Kanaka community overseas. The convention was taken to Washington State in an effort to support our Kanaka abroad, to not only stay abreast, but to remain conscious about the many issues and the hot topics, the latest of events going on in the Hawaiian community. And so not only did I have the privilege of serving, but also I had the privilege of meeting up with none other than Free Hawaii News' own Leon Siu. And so, Leon, what other reflections do you have of our time spent there in Washington?
There were some very, very, very good programs and panels and discussions that went on that went into a lot of our topics quite deeply. And I thought that was very, very good as well to share this type of mana'o and this type of exploration and discussion and digging deeper into what's going on in Hawaii and among our Hawaiian people.
Yes. And that's quite astute to point out, Leon. Also, when we consider the greater amount of Kanaka that live overseas, more Kanaka living on Mokuhonu, or the continental US, than here in Hawaii, the mainland. And so we are faced with the unique reality that more Kanaka overseas means less of our voices of advocacy, less of, even in the current system of politics, we are not a majority here. We're not an economic majority. We're not a political majority. And so it's important that our Kanaka really do stay current. If they are proud to say they're Kanaka and they continue to have great affection and connection to the homeland, it's important that they know what happens. And so the convention was a way for our fellow Kanaka to not only engage, but to remain connected. What was your favorite panel?
I had several. But actually my favorite event there was the presentation of the Hi'iaka drama and musical that was put together. I'd like to actually mention that because I really commend the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, or the Hawaiian Council, for helping to put something like that together, because really, as you well know, because you're so much involved in the arts and in music, that this is really important to us because it's the arts that speak to our people. and our stories. So telling our story in such a wonderful form. So for those of you, I'll explain, there was a musical that was presented, and it was just superbly written, great music. And the story, of course, is of Hi'iaka and her journey and the confrontation she had with Pele. And all, but it was our story, and it was told by our people in our way, and yet it had a very modern bent to it. And I thought that it was really excellently done, and I'd like to see more of that. I commend the Hawaiian Council for getting involved in the arts, because the arts, and of course you're an artist yourself, and on many levels. And so I think that this is really commendable, that we uh, help our people to get re in touch again with who they are through the arts.
We come from a culture that is not only based on the collective and based on the group, but we also are an oral tradition. And so that means that what comes forward from our voices and what our ears are able to retain, that's how we transfer knowledge and impart that upon our next generations. The Pacific Way is about oral histories being told from one generation to the next. It is about celebrating and honoring who we are as people of the Moana Nui. It is about honoring the path that we have come and knowing this path well so that we can chart the path for the future. These are part of the hallmarks of being part of the Pacific Ocean, the Moana Nui a Kea. And Leon, what would you say is one of the most important takeaways, given where we've just come from and that which we experienced? You mentioned the Hi'iaka, and there were so many other things.
But going back to what we're saying about the oral history and all that, it not only transfers our knowledge, but it actually shapes the way we think. It shapes our thoughts, and it shapes our actions. And that's really the Pacific Way. If we know who we are, and we know our stories, that has a definite impact on how we're going to interact with the problems and the challenges facing us in the future, because we have a firm foundation in who we are. And by doing so, it helps us deal with the challenges that come up in our lives, and with not only challenges, but the dreams, the things that we want to see happen and create, and how we want to see our people prosper and survive and thrive. So these are the things that are important for us to know where we came from, so that we can plot the path as to where we want to go.
Yes, Leon, and I would add to that statement by saying that as we remember the path that we have come from and are able to take this understanding and look towards the future, it's critical for our people to know and to always remember that we are of the Moana Nui, we are of the Pacific. The Pacific Way reminds us of not only our identity, but our rightful place in Hawaii, in the Moana Nui, and that we have got to consider solutions to the existing issues that we have as also being relevant, and rooted to the Pacific, and that any aspirations that we have, any goals that we have, must give great consideration to that which will thrive and find success, not just here in Hawaii in the Moana Nui, but be fruitful and productive for us as Kanaka to aspire to.
One of the other things that occurred to me while we were there is we started out by talking about the diaspora, or the people that are our people are spread all over the planet, and particularly in the United States. It really occurred to me that this is not a bad thing, that this is something in which, if we're talking about our people, and we saw evidence of our people who maintain their identity as Kanaka and as local people from Hawaii, and that identity is very strong still, no matter where they live. And what this has is an effect on the people around them. In other words, we're carrying aloha to the world. And so the diaspora is actually, I see it almost like sleeper cells of aloha that are being placed all over the world. And I got that feeling while we were in Washington at this convention, that these are people that are like us, and they think like us, and we're all Hawaiians. And as Hawaiians, no matter where we go, we have an impact and an effect and an influence in the people around us.
At the recent Hawaiian Council convention last month in Tulalip, Washington, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs sponsored a side event about U.S. federal recognition. The push for federal recognition had been dormant for many years and considered by many to be a dead issue because of lack of interest in it by many in the Hawaiian community. But now, with the recent lawsuit against Kamehameha School's admissions policy, federal recognition is once again being discussed by some. One of those who attended this OHA-sponsored side event at the Hawaiian Council Convention was Makaio Villanueva, who is often referred to as one of many Aloha Aina Kia'i. We go now to Makaio for more information. Aloha mai ka'awa e Makaio.
Aloha, Hina. Thank you for having me on Free Hawaii News. It's a pleasure to be here.
Makaio, you were in the room there for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs session on U.S. federal recognition. Tell us about what that was like.
Going inside was a little uneasy. A room full of about 50 to 100 people at times. And there were people there that were well-known proponents of federal recognition, and a few people who I know from the community as champions of sovereignty. And looking out into the audience, there were a lot of people that I didn't recognize.
What do you think the impetus was for federal recognition to be brought back up at this time?
With the Kamehameha Schools lawsuit, I think that some people are getting nervous, right? And they feel that if federal recognition was well accepted and people were ready to make a move on it, that would be a solution to that never happening again, or being able to have a standing in saying that no, you don't control what happens to our people and our education.
How large of a role do you think the new Kamehameha lawsuit plays in all of this?
I definitely think that the Kamehameha School's lawsuit plays a significant role in the conversation. It was brought up a number of times throughout the panel, and unfortunately for me, it sounds like a fear tactic.
Is the Kamehameha lawsuit being used as a scare tactic?
They were using words like, if we had federal recognition, we would be able to have laws that did not fall under the guidelines that are being used to put this lawsuit forward. Of course, we all know that Kamehameha Schools and our princesses will have the law and our people on its side, right? So I think it was a poor attempt, but it's something that's fresh in everybody's hearts and minds. So to bring it up in that manner without having the independence part is, I don't know, to me it's kind of helpful.
Who would actually profit if U.S. federal recognition occurred?
We need to ask the natives of the continent, right? That question. Because most of them, from my conversations, right, would say that that federal recognition puts you on a leash, that your independence and your sovereignty, your ea is really only goes as far as what the federal government says they're okay with, right? And there's yeah, you're not making treaties with different countries. There's so many restrictions. It's just, I don't know. I don't think it's for us.
In your opinion, would U.S. federal recognition be a good fit for Hawaiians or no?
No, federal recognition would not be a good fit for Hawaiians. We have to remember, right, that there was never a treaty of annexation, right? And so in the international realm, in uh, looking for our sovereignty and independence, right, our greatest argument is that we've never consented, right? And so I think for me, if the minute I consent to federal recognition, it shows the world that we're okay with this now, that we're willing to be a part of the United States or be a nation within the nation. And I don't think that's a good fit for us. It's a different story. We were an independent, internationally recognized nation from 1843, to 1893, and still today, that is the current political national status of the Hawaiian Kingdom, is that we are a state in continuity. No, federal recognition we're not Native Americans. It's a very different situation.
Can the Ku'e petitions be reconciled with federal recognition?
If we look back to 1896, 1898, right? Almost every Hawaiian and almost every Hawaiian subject, right, signed the petition to deny, right, to compel the United States not to annex Hawaii to the United States, right? And so of those almost 40,000 people, every single Hawaiian alive today could probably trace their mo'okuauhau, their piko, to one of those signatures. And I think it is a slap in the face of those kupuna to say, no, we need to have control of our land base now, that we need to um uh establish a government to government relationship right now, because we want to see something happen right now. And I think that is the fear mindset or perspective that people who have championed federal recognition are coming from, right? They're fearful that our people won't survive, that our aina won't survive. But if we think back 7 generations ago, right? The prayer of all of our kupuna, almost all of our kupuna, right? Kanaka Maoli and otherwise, right? Their prayer was to establish. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but was for independence, that we did not want to be part of the United States, right? I want to be their answered prayer. And out of everybody I know at least 300 people, and they know at least 300 people, and they know at least 300 people that understand our history. And any of them that understand this history, nobody that I know can reconcile the Ku'e petitions with federal recognition.
No leila mahalo anui ia oe e makaio mahalo anui no ko kia imau no ke aloha aina mahalo anui ke kipa ana mai. In September, Native Hawaiian organizations stood together at Iolani Palace and delivered an historic joint statement on the upcoming expiration of U.S. military land leases in Hawaii and encouraged others to join in a unified call for transparency and Hawaiian community representation in lease negotiations. Additionally, there are calls for these lands to be returned to Hawaiian stewardship. For more information, We go now to Camille Kalama, co-founder of Huli, the Hawaiian Unity and Liberation Institute. She is a Hawaiian attorney, and she is amongst many Kanaka who are Aloha Aina patriots. Aloha mai ka'aua, Camille.
Aloha, Hina. Mahalo for having me.
Tell us about the historic joint statement that was issued at Iolani Palace, and also the organizations that endorsed it.
The joint statement came together out of months, really, if not years of work between the folks who organized around the statement, including the organizations that came together to sign on. And I want to be clear that these are not the only organizations working on the issue of military leases that are expiring between 2029 and 2032. This is a culmination of efforts by community organizations, individuals across the Pai'aina. And what really happened when we came together that day was an attempt at an intervention. You know, in the past few years, the military has submitted environmental impact statements to the Board of Land and Natural Resources that were rejected. This is for training areas at Pohakuloa on Hawaii Island, as well as various areas on Oahu.
What role will these organizations hope to play in the attempt by the U.S. military to renew these leases?
That's a great question. You know, the individuals and the organizations involved, like I said, make up Hawaiian community. And we believe that there is a clear right and a clear position for Kanaka Maoli to have in the discussions around the future of these leased lands. And I'm careful not to say renewals because there's currently no process for renewing those leases. And so what we're talking about and what we've said in our statement and in our letter is that Kanaka Maoli, Hawaiians should be part of all the decision making, whatever that is and whatever that looks like. We should not be, there should not be meetings behind closed doors, decisions behind closed doors without our active participation and input. Now, I also want to be clear that that does not mean the 39 organizations are saying, we want a seat at the table. What we're saying is Hawaiian community, including many more beyond us, should be determining who is involved in those decisions, if that makes sense. And so, as you may know, we've gone to the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as well to ask them to stand with us, not stand for us. And there's a distinction there, not speak for us, but speak alongside us, because OHA also has a particular kuleana under the law to be a trustee of these lands as well. And so our role, what we say our role is bringing visibility, bringing light to the fact that Kanaka Maoli are not being included, are clearly excluded from the decision, from the discussions, from the agreement that occurred between Driscoll and Governor Green. And even when we've spoken up, the response has been to create a website where the general public can submit comments on this issue. And that's clearly not enough. You know, we have recognized legal claim to these lands, and like I said, a vast majority of these lands, and we're still here. And those lands, the impact, what happens on those lands has an impact on our future generations of Kanaka and the people of Hawaii. So while we seek to play a role in that, in bringing to light that visibility, the demand for transparency during this process, we also want to invite everyone here in Hawaii to join us in working together to see a better future for these lands, for all of Hawaii.
Why is there so much opposition from Hawaiians to renewing the leases?
If you look at the history of the military impact in Hawaii, it will tell you what you need to know. I mean, the impacts go from environmental to economic to social. And what we're told is that, you know, economically, we need the military. It's a huge part of our economy. But has anyone truly evaluated the cost of the impact of having the vast amount of military that is here. If you look at Hawaii compared to other states, we have a huge amount compared to the relative land base that we have and the people that we have.
Why is it important, Camille, to have Hawaiian community representation in all lease negotiations?
The reason it's important, and not just it's critical to have Hawaiian representation, to have Kanaka, Maoli in decision making around these lands, is because it is our legal right and kuleana. And we cannot rely on the state to carry that kuleana for us. We've already seen whether it's a failure or an unwillingness or for whatever reason, the state has not upheld its trust duties to protect these lands. And what I'm talking about are the lands currently held by the state and also in part by the federal government, leased to the federal government in this case. The state has not carried its burden to protect them. And so who else but us? We have a kuleana, we have a commitment, and we are determined to see the future of these lands back in Hawaiian hands, back in lands that are cared for, in hands that are going to care for them for the future generations. We're going to be here. We say that time and time again. The folks that are here training, the folks that are here using those lands, they come and go every few years. You know, it's part of the process of being in the military. But we don't have a choice. This is our homeland. This is our only home. We have nowhere else to go.
Would you say these lands are considered by Kanaka to be sacred?
There are folks on Hawaii Island who care for Pohakuloa, who are up there taking care of iwi and sacred sites that are impacted by Pohakuloa. And so I'm sure there are places they would say are sacred on these lands. I think that in some cases, people look at us like we're saying every piece of land is sacred, so you can't do anything on them. And I would say, in a sense, yes. You know, in a sense, yes, that aina is sacred to our people. Aina is for protecting. It's for giving life. It's for supporting, you know, life itself. And so we are for taking care of these lands in a way that then takes care of us and everyone who lives here.
Has the U.S. military been a good steward of these lands?
No, but I don't ask you to take my word for it. You know, there's been a court proceeding around this in regards to Pohakuloa, and seeing that the military had not complied with the lease terms. And the lease terms required cleanup of debris after every training exercise. What we heard in the trial on that case was that there might have been one phone call in 60 years by the state to find out if there was any cleanup. And we know that there is debris. We know that in many of these places, including the Superfund site right behind me, it's been on schedule to have a cleanup plan that was supposed to happen in 2025, I think. That plan has not been done yet. And this is just one example of many sites around the Pai'aina where the cleanup is not happening. It's not started.
The lands the United States military leases from the state of Hawaii for military training are actually Hawaii national lands. Could you tell us more about Hawaii national lands?
Hawaii national lands refers to the lands that were held by the Crown and the government of the Kingdom of Hawaii in the 1800s, before it was overthrown and occupied by the United States. Now, they're called ceded lands, but they were never, in fact, ceded. There was no treaty of cession. And so these lands were essentially seized by the United States. And so then I guess the question is, why are they now entrusted, or why are they now being leased to the federal government? Well, in 1959, when Hawaii became a state of the Union, the federal government then transferred a portion of the lands back to the state of Hawaii to hold in trust for 5 purposes. One of them includes the betterment of Native Hawaiians. And so the vast majority, like I said, of these lease lands are these seized lands currently held by the state in trust for, in part, Hawaiian people.
Camille, given the egregious example of Red Hill, where not only were Native Hawaiians in great uproar, but everyone else was too, how can we make sure that the state of Hawaii does not bypass not only our Kanaka Oiwi, but also all the other people here in Hawaii that are at risk?
That's a great question, and it's something that we are actively working to figure out on a daily. I mean, we need to create our own venues to give our voice to this issue. And just like what you folks are doing here by allowing us to speak on a public forum to raise these issues, to create awareness, because there are no current public processes except for a comment box on a website. We need to create those opportunities for ourselves. So whether that's in print, whether that's in interviews, whether that is in articles, showing up for different events and decision making, that is what we can do at this point.
No leila, mahalo anui yaʻoe Camille, mahalo yaʻoe ki kipa mai, mahalo anui kauhana nui.
Next on Free Hawaii News, Kumuhina's Mana'o.
I'd like to reflect about the many discussions that are being carried about in and amongst our community. And that has to do with the pending litigation against my alma mater, the Kamehameha schools, and efforts that come from the continent that threaten to challenge the legal basis of admissions policy, where preference is given to our pua'a pauahi, our mamo o Hawaii nei, our youth of Native Hawaiian descent. And I must say that I'm just beside myself to think about how and why people who come from away are of the mindset that they should be so privileged as to seek equity, equality in a world that does not have equity and equality for us as Kanaka, not just anywhere, but in our own home. And what I mean by this is that the whole reason why Keali'i Pauahi set aside her estate, and in her will, she directed that school be established for the education of her people, those of us who are Kanaka and of this land. And it was her dream, it was her vision that we would become productive, that we would be industrious, that we would work hard. It was the vision of Keali'i Pauahi that we would be able to surmount all challenges that are posed to us. And of course, by directing that her assets provide for our education, it is in this way that she is truly one of the greatest chiefs that we have not only ever seen, but that we continue to interact with on a very active and daily basis. As someone who was educated at Kamehameha during the late 80s, graduating in the class of 1990, I reflect on the many opportunities that I was afforded and how, yes, there were Kanaka that did not make it into Kamehameha. And for some, I know some remain saddened by the fact that they did not get to come to school with us. And that is a matter for our inner community within the Hawaiian community politics. But when it comes to outsiders who are wanting a piece of this, yet the reason why we have some of the most deplorable of statistics here in Hawaii is because of the inequities caused by our collision with foreigners, collision with the United States of America and their illegal takeover of Hawaii, and the US docking their warship here in Honolulu, I just think to myself, I cannot see how people can even contemplate doing such a thing. Now, it's quite important that the thought of a private will, Keali'i Pauahi, directed that her estate, which means it was her private resources, her money, her lands, be allocated to provide for whom she wished to provide for. Now, at first, it seems like this issue is only a Hawaiian issue because the pending litigation threatens to undo what empowers Kamehameha to select from students that are of Native Hawaiian ancestry. What really should be alarming for everyone who resides in Hawaii and even abroad within the context of the American judicial system and the larger American political system. This is extremely, extremely dangerous because it would set a precedent within a higher court for someone's personal will to be politically challenged and potentially overturned, meaning that, again, in this case, the will of Keali'i Pauahi said that she wants Hawaiian children to be educated, and therefore she directs that her monies provide for us. So anyone who has a home, money, and other resources, other assets, if you think that you're leaving your most precious of items, if you think that you're leaving your land, your belongings, your personal effects, if you think that you're providing for your future posterity, that is all threatened contingent upon the precedent set should those who challenge or stand to challenge Kamehameha schools. Again, very, very bad precedent because the personal will of Keali'i Pauahi should be considered in the current context that we find ourselves. And it should be considered a personal will to those whom she personally wishes to receive the benefit. Imagine what kind of precedent it sets for her personal will to not only be threatened and challenged, but that somebody could even contemplate being victorious over such a thing. That means that anyone who has personal assets and wealth and wishes to ensure their next of kin, their next generations, to benefit from it. And if somebody wanted to challenge that and take that away from those whom were previously designated by the benefactor or benefactress of said resources. So I challenge everybody, whether you live here in Hawaii, in the islands, or you live abroad. The current pending lawsuit is within the framework of not only the United States, but the American judicial system. And therefore, everybody who lives under this government and this judicial system should be extremely, acutely aware and actually should be up in arms. And I would encourage, I do know that Kamehameha Schools, Bishop State, has set up a petition, and people can sign that by going to ksbe.edu and looking for the petition, Eola Pauahi, Eola Hawaii, and you can like and share it, and you too can join in, not only to support Kanaka and to keep the legacy of Keali'i Pauahi, to benefit Kanaka who are already disenfranchised and disempowered, disconnected in our own home, but you can also help protect your own personal legacy by not allowing somebody to come in and threaten this very prime example of a personal estate, and this personal estate of our princess, such that her trustees and her estate would now be forced to simply go against what the money was set aside for. So, in this time of Kumahina's Mana'o, I ask each and every one of you to sit with this for a moment, give it thought, and to also consider the ramifications of not taking action and not saying anything. In Hawaii, Hawaiians are not a major political nor economic force, and we cannot do this without our friends who are out there in the larger community. So, for everyone tuning in, please do consider supporting the plight and supporting the future of Native Hawaiians to have a running chance at having the opportunities that our Keali'i Pauahi has set aside for the future generations of Hawaii.
From the Kingdom of Tonga, I want to say aloha nui for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News.
No leila e nā hoa kipa, e nā hoa launa o ke iahiai nei. Mahalo anui ko kākou hiki ana mai i ke ia, ka hoʻokuʻu ana i ko kākou polokalamu no ke ia lā. A hui hou kākou, aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. A hui ho, aloha aina.
Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.